We have lots to discuss in today's video. We're only a few days away now from the NHL trade deadline. Tonight's trade rumors taking a look at the Boston Bruins, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They could be looking at a couple of big options here, especially looking at a deal potentially here with the Philadelphia Flyers. The New York Rangers still very much have Chris Kreider on the market, so we'll explore how that could work out. Some more rumors around the San Jose Sharks, Alex Tuch in Buffalo, Jared McCann and Yanni Gourde in Seattle, and a few others as well. Plus, we have some signings, including Jake Evans of Montreal, Jesper Boqvist in Florida, some big injury updates as well. And of course, we're going to review the trade from earlier, which went down between the Bruins and the Oilers. And we have news from the NHL waiver wire as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to discuss here in today's video. Of course, earlier today we saw a fairly significant NHL trade between the Boston Bruins, New Jersey Devils, and Edmonton Oilers. The Devils were the third-party facilitator, broker, whatever you want to call them, to kind of help retain some salary here. But essentially, the Oilers pick up Trent Frederic and Max Jones from Boston. Obviously, they gave up a prospect in this piece as well. New Jersey ends up getting a little something as well for retaining an extra chunk of Frederic's salary. And when it's all said and done, the Bruins end up getting themselves a couple of draft picks and a prospect. The Devils get a prospect out of it, and everything kind of works out. And the prospect, LeChance, that the Oilers traded that ended up with New Jersey, is a player who's in college and that likely wasn't going to be signing. There was a lot of belief in Edmonton that LeChance wasn't going to end up signing with the Oilers, was likely going the UFA route. So he goes to the Devils, and of course his dad, Scott LeChance, works with the Devils. So I would suspect that there's a good chance that he'll sign there. So the BU defenseman will become a prospect of New Jersey, and obviously a player that they were, keen to get into their organization for a little bit of salary retention on their part. The Oilers, of course, it'll be tough to say exactly how this trade works out. Frederic is hurt right now, so he won't really be making an impact for at least a few weeks. It'll be after the trade deadline before we get to see him debut in Edmonton. And, of course, they're likely not done here as well, trying to make some other moves with the limited space that they have here as well. So the Bruins are certainly starting to pull the trigger on some trades to shake up their roster. We got news from the waiver wire as well, making some suggestions that the Lightning are trying their best to set themselves up for as much of activity as possible here. They've placed veteran winger Cam Atkinson on waivers. He was a free agent signing on a one-year deal this year. Came in on a cheap veteran contract. Hasn't really worked out, so they can pretty well bury his full contract in the minors if he clears, or of course if it picks up, he goes to the other team anyway. So either way, there's a good chance they get that contract off their books. Right now, it's showing that they have $6 million in deadline space. They'd be able to bump that up to $7 million by clearing the Atkinson contract. They also signed Logan Brown as well, the former first rounder from, what was he, back in 2016, I think it was, with the Senators. Never really worked out. Had a great junior career, but often injured. Had a good AHL career during his time in Ottawa. Often injured, though. Eventually ended up getting moved. Has spent time in St. Louis and now in Tampa. So he was in the Tampa organization already. He's been there for a few years, but this time he was a AHL only deal. So he gets upgraded to a two-way NHL contract, which is what he'll require waivers for. So Logan Brown's also on waivers for Tampa. He gets signed to that contract for the remainder of the season. So far this year, he's put up 19 points in 25 American Hockey League games. And on other waiver news, yesterday we had the Sharks have forward Walker Duehr on waivers. He cleared, so he's been reassigned to the San Jose Barracuda organization and the American Hockey League. Some injury updates. The Kraken appear to have activated veteran centerman Yanni Gourde. Of course, Yanni Gourde is a player who's got a lot of rumors around him and his future in Seattle. Of course, he's a pending unrestricted free agent, and there is some talk that the Lightning, who have just made a bunch of moves here to free up some additional space, that he could be somebody on their radar. Of course, he was during the time that he was with Tampa, the third line that they had there with Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman was one of the best third lines we've seen in recent Stanley Cup champion history. Like if you take a look at the last probably 10 years, let's say, that trio as a third line was one of the best ones we've seen in quite a while. And of course, over time, they all did so well and together that they eventually all had to move on. Gourde ended up going to Seattle, of course, and then of course, Coleman got the big free agent contract from the Flames. Barclay Goodrow ended up getting going to the Rangers, so they all got dismantled because they couldn't afford to keep them, but they all had phenomenal runs there as a really, really solid third line. And there's some talk that Gourde might be on the radar to go back, so we'll see. I mean, there's other teams that have been linked to him. The center market for rentals in the NHL around the deadline is a little bit on the thin side. It may have gotten a little bit deeper with a few players specifically, which we'll get to here in a few minutes, from the Bruins maybe joining the list of available players, but there's not a ton out there, which is kind of making some of these same teams kind of going for some of the same guys. So we'll see. But Yanni Gourde is activated, should be able to play, and is certainly out there in the rumor mill for a potential trade. We've confirmed today that Bruins captain Brad Marchand's out week to week. So he won't play again until after the trade deadline. Again, a lot of uncertainty around Brad Marchand. He's been adamant he wants to remain a Bruin. I have no doubt that he would prefer that. We know that he and his camp have talked contract with the Bruins organization, and as of right now, there's no contract extension. So it's really unsure what's going to happen. I mean, at this point, the Bruins appear to have kind of waved the white flag here, and I don't think that they would keep Marchand for trying to get into the playoffs as their own rental. I mean, I have no doubt the team is going to continue to push and see if they can get in, but they do have a battle on their hands with about probably four of their teams. Really, if you look at where Boston is in the standings, you've got the Rangers are right there, the Senators, the Red Wings, the Blue Jackets, and there's only a couple of spots, and the Bruins are kind of in that mix right there with the points, but they've also got more games played, tougher schedule. And with Marchand being out for a while, that's not going to make things any easier. So we'll see. I think, as far as Marchand's future goes, it really boils down to if the Bruins are confident they can get something done on the contract. If they don't really think they're anywhere near the same stratosphere on a new deal, then at this point, then he could be dealt. But he's going to have some say where he goes if he does go, since he has that protection in his contract. So we'll see. We don't have any official words from the Devils yet on Jack Hughes, but things don't look good. It is quite possible, according to some, that we may not really get a firm update with a definitive timeline until after the trade deadline, mainly because the Devils may not want to kind of tip their hand here to let everybody else know what's going on. But I think most teams are going to be pretty obvious that Jack Hughes is in some significant discomfort and is likely looking at an extended time away from the game. Whether or not he's be able to play in the playoffs is another story. It's difficult to say at this point. There's some that believe that whether or not the big factor here with Hughes, he's undergoing different tests to determine if he absolutely has to have surgery or if he can be rehabbed a different way. So again, doesn't look good. I'm not sure what they'll do. I would think most likely he'd end up on LTIR, and if he does play again this year, it'd be in the playoffs. Maybe if he can. I'm not sure that's possible or not because we don't know enough about the injury, but certainly not looking promising for him. Some signings today, including a big one in Montreal. They come to terms with Jake Evans, taking another one of the centermen off the trade market. Of course, we had said all along that there's been tons of rumors around this guy, and there was lots of interest because he's having a career season. He's been really good bottom six centerman with this year's more offense on his game, and he's been a really good penalty killer, special teams expert. So, it's understandable why teams would be interested. There's no doubt about that. In Montreal, in Evans's camp, appeared far apart on a contract extension. He ends up signing a 4-year deal at $2.85 million. The speculation on what he was looking for earlier in the year, which is why this never came together sooner, was a 5-year deal around $4 million a season. So, $4 million down to $2.85 is a substantial drop. So that tells me a couple things. One, he and his agent maybe weren't so confident they're going to get that money on the open market, or combine that with the fact that he obviously really wanted to stay in Montreal, so the asking price came down. So clearly, Evans is in his late 20s at this point. They'll take him to, I believe it's age 33 that he'll be when his contract expires, $2.85 million, with the cap rising for a bottom six centerman who can be good in the penalty kill, good in the face-off dot, and do what he does, even if the offensive numbers don't quite continue where they were this year, it could still be a decent contract. But like I said before, at $4 million a season, like I said, there was no way Montreal was doing that, and it was going to lead to a trade. The only way he was staying is if his asking price came down. That appears to be what's happened here, and they got it done. So I like this contract for the Canadiens. And I think should theoretically age well. Florida's also re-signed forward Jesper Boqvist. Gets a 2-year contract at $1.5 million. Of course, the Panthers need all the value contracts they can get given their cap situation. So again, another nice find there by Bill Zito. Now, onto a bunch of different rumors around the league. There's still all kinds of stuff that's likely going to happen over the next 2, 3, 4 days here, be leading into the deadline on Friday afternoon. Of course, we saw the big deal at the Bruins earlier, moving Jones and Frederic. They're still, and then we already talked about Marchand, but they're getting a lot of calls on other guys too. Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, Brandon Carlo, and Morgan Geekie are all out there. With Geekie and Geekie can play center or wing, so can Coyle, and so can Zacha. So the fact that they can all be centermen on a thin center market is also part of the reason why I think they're getting calls on all of these guys. Geekie's a player that's certainly having a career season, so again, probably buyer beware in that case. I don't know that he's going to go somewhere else and excel. Some players just have a good fit with certain players, certain teams, and have a hard time duplicating that. I'm not sure if I'm a team looking for a middle six centerman that Geekie would be high on my list, but I know that he is a player that's driving a lot of interest. We talked about Brandon Carlo getting interest from Calgary and a few other teams. So, whether or not he doesn't, these are players that they don't necessarily have to move. I think Geekie's a more likely possibility because of the contract, but Coyle and Zacha, if the offers are right, they could be moved. And we know that Don Sweeney and the Bruins right now are potentially going through a decent little retool here, depending on how things play out. But lots of players with the Bruins that are in the mix for trades. They're not all going to move, but probably wouldn't be shocking to see a couple more likely get, going to a new spot. The Sharks are holding out goaltender Vitek Vanacek for trade-related reasons, so he is backing up in San Jose for the San Jose Sharks tonight. Of course, they're still on the road here, having another solid game. They beat the Leafs, and now they're having another good game here this evening. But yeah, Vanacek almost just shy of $3.5 million on his contract. They can't retain any money on him. They've got all three of their retention slots used up, two of which are for Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. So certainly, then the other with Hurdle. So they're not going to have their retention spots back for a while. So I'm not sure how the things are going to work out with Vanacek. They would need a third party to retain money if that was going to be used as a potential trade spot. But they must have some serious interest if they're holding him out. So another player there to watch. They had to go back to back here with Georgiev, considering they didn't want Vanacek to play, risking the injury. Of course, the Rangers are still holding out Riley Smith, so he's still expected to be moved. And they're also still very much, according to fourthperiod.com and Dave Paynoda, still very much trying to move Chris Kreider. And it sounds like not only are they willing, but are almost motivated to do so. It sounds like the Rangers are really trying to clear a bunch of money in roster spots and trying to create some flexibility to be able to be big players in the offseason and the summer, kind of setting themselves up for one or multiple big summer moves. So Kreider is still very much in play. Of course, we had heard, when the Rangers were going through a major slump there back a couple months ago, that their top guys like Trouba and Kreider were the main ones that were mentioned that were made available around the league. And, of course, Trouba's been gone for a while now. We hadn't really heard much about Kreider recently, but according to Paynoda, very much out there. So don't be shocked if we do see a significant deal out of the Rangers organization. They're still trying to get into the playoffs, but again, they're not going to pass up a good deal for next year and beyond. If they don't have a lot of confidence in this group, they're going to do what they think is right for the team in the long haul here. So we'll see what happens there. Scott Laughton in Philadelphia, very much getting a lot of attention as well. There's been a lot of talk about the Leafs and the Flyers having deep conversations, and it could be a bigger deal, more than just a one player. There's some that believe that the Leafs are showing significant interest in both Laughton and defenseman Rasmus Ristolainen, and it could be be a case of multiple assets, and turn into a 4 or 5 player deal, because there would have to be something come off the Leafs roster, plus other future based pieces like picks and prospects included as well. I know Elliot Friedman made mention that the Leafs completely understand here that to do a more significant move, that whether it be their 2026 first round pick or Fraser Minton, Easton Cowan, Ben Danford, like their top prospects in that first rounder, because they don't have 25, so 26 is going to have to be something that is very much out there, and they're going to have to be included to do something big. So we will see what they do. But Laughton is believed. I know some people have said that they have reason to believe that Scott Laughton would be very much open to going to the Leafs. So, we'll see what happens on that front. I don't know exactly what the asking price would be, but we've had the cryptic tweet, if you will, Scott Laughton posting a photo of a kind of like the Flyers version of the Last Supper, if you will, considering all the rumors around him, and really, which has been the better part. Like he said, he talked about it after saying, "I've been in the rumor mill for a couple of years. I just thought he's just having some fun with his social media," but at the same time, acknowledging that things could legit be coming to an end here now. So we'll see. But could the Leafs benefit from a deal of Laughton and Ristolainen? There's some that think they need to be shooting a little bit higher here, but that might be a deal that's, I wouldn't say it's close, but it seems to be, from enough sources, something that's actively being discussed. So whether or not they move forward with it or not could be another story. We'll have to wait and see. The Sharks, besides Vanacek, are also looking at deals for Muriel Ferraro. Again, not a guarantee he goes, but they are kind of motivated to sell in some cases. I've heard of teams like Detroit and Calgary both expressing various levels of interest. Again, Ferraro has been a player that's been in and out of the rumor mill for the better part of at least a year, so not a guarantee he moves, but we know the Sharks are at this point willing to move a variety of things there, of course, except some of their untouchable younger pieces. A couple other names generating a lot of buzz around the trade deadline, as well as Alex Tuch in Buffalo, Jared McCann in Seattle. Both players are not guys that we're for sure going to see moved, but are believed to be somewhat available, but not, teams are not sold on moving them, but they're not absolutely going to hang up the phone and won't listen either. So, with McCann, I think the Kraken are definitely looking for, I guess you could say they're looking to shake things up there after back-to-back underperforming as a team these seasons. The Kraken need to kind of retool here a bit, and they feel McCann's value would be good enough to get some decent return. So hard to say exactly what the value would generate for a return, but Jared McCann is out there, and he comes with some decent goal scoring ability and a short bit of term as well. Alex Tuch in Buffalo, again, believed to be one of the players that the Sabres would probably prefer to keep, but if the way teams are reportedly inquiring, and we're talking about probably at least 6 to 8 teams for him, that he's got a good contract, they like what he brings, he's got good size, good speed, playoff tested as well. So, he's one of those guys that a lot of teams would love to have, and whether or not the Sabres are willing to do it or not, it'd be depend if they make it worth their while. But the Sabres, not just with Tuch, but any of their guys, whether it's Samuelson or Cousins or Byram, they're going to have to be hockey trades. They don't want future-based trades where you're getting a first-rounder and a top prospect. They need players that can play right now. So it'd be player for player to shake things up. Like Peterka's name even jumped up there, which shocked a lot of people as well. And if they're going to move Peterka, they need another, 22, 23-year-old coming back that can hopefully give them a similar result and maybe play a different way or have a better chemistry with certain players or what have you. Like just an old-fashioned hockey trade where everybody can kind of win the deal, so to speak. But again, lots out there. So we'll see. We're still, like I said, today's Tuesday. Deadline's Friday. There's bound to be lots of activity here over the next coming days, so stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.